Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Tara Thomas, and this is my mom, my guest co host this
Good
morning.
morning,
And tell us your name.
Joanne Thomas.
And my mom and I had a really busy week, a really exciting week. It was also bittersweet. It was Tuesday, the 5-year anniversary of my dad's passing. He's actually right over your shoulder in that family photo. So
I can't figure
yeah, we're
out
the
which-
opposite direction being
Right
live.
up there.
So that's his urn that's over my right shoulder. It'd be actually from what your vantage point, my left shoulder, and he passed away 5 years ago Tuesday. So since it was a significant milestone, being 5 years since he passed, my mom had said she wanted to do something special to really mark the occasion. So in addition to what we planned, that she planned, which was visiting cemeteries where both sides of my family are buried in Gibson City and Fooseland, Illinois, more out in the farm, cemeteries out in those areas. I surprised her, and I have that video still on our Facebook page, with the launch of our new book. So it's called Sleepless in Peoria, Wisdom from a Caregiver Turned Widow, documenting her journey from the time my dad was diagnosed until he passed away. And she knew, because she helped obviously write the book, she knew that it was going to be coming out, but it was time to be released on Amazon on that 5-year anniversary. So what's been the response from the public?
My gosh. My Facebook has blown up because Tara went through and picked out people that I communicate with often, and they have just been wonderful to comment and think it's great that we did that, and so many of them say, I ordered mine, and can't wait to read it. And in fact, my book club, that we have been together for 13 years.
Oh my gosh.
This book club. And we're all retired educators, and they are so good at picking what books we should read. Each of us take a month, and we select the book to read, and then we host the group at our home and discuss the book. So 2 of them are pairing up in August, and they put out to the book club, let's add Joanne and Tara's book. So they're going to also discuss it at book club in
That's great.
August.
And it's a really honest take on what you went through, and then I added some of my own reflections, because your life instantly changes, and it is completely out of your control, because my dad was diagnosed really out of the blue, and it was a full-blown diagnosis of advanced stage Lewy body. So how tough was it for you to really revisit some of that time?
I did not realize, once we had agreed to do this, that there were going to be some tough times. Tara would send me questions, and then I would reflect on those questions, and there were some times that I actually broke down, and it just reopened wounds that never completely heal. And so yes, it was tough. I think it was worth it. If it helps one person that's going through this, it was well worth it. And so they know that you're not crazy. It's an actual fact that you're going to go through these times and have these times that are very, very tough when you're the caregiver and then become the widow.
And by 5 years in, you still, as recently as last week, when you're invited to get-togethers, if it's couples that you and Dad would hang out with, you still feel a hole even going to those events.
Right. I feel so fortunate that they still include me. because I read comments about widows that are not included in their couple groups anymore. And so I am so blessed, we call it our gourmet group, that they include me to come to their get-togethers. But it really hits that, can I get through this? And a couple Christmases ago, when the group was getting together, I just couldn't go. I couldn't do it. And the worst time is, I'm excited to go to see them, to catch up with what they're doing, and we always share with each other what our grandkids are doing. But I get ready, and I sit down right over there in this living room, waiting for the time to go, and that's when it hits. And I sit there, and I look at that urn, and you'll find yourself talking to your spouse a lot after they're gone, and hoping they can hear you. Maybe not everything that you're saying. But, and I'd say, Jim, you would be so happy to be going with me to this party, and I don't know if I can do it without you.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, we say that a lot when we're going to an event where we know my dad would have loved to see and talk with all the people. He was a very social person, and there was recently an event where I emceed my high school's, it was the Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame ceremony, where a lot of athletes and accomplished graduates of my high school were inducted into this Hall of Fame. And so my mom and my sister and I all went, and they said, we all agreed Dad would have loved an event like that, because there are just so many, and then all the things that happen in your life with your kids and the milestones, and then you're always thinking, oh, if only Papa were here, right, to see how all the grandkids are changing and growing up. So if you're just joining us, Tara and Joanne, my mom, we are live in Peoria, Illinois on this Friday, July 3rd. As you can see in the backdrop, my mom has a beautiful condo, and it's actually very spacious, much more so than the camera reflects, because this room that we're in is a big open space. Our camera's on the large dining room table, and then behind us, it really just morphs into this fireplace seating area that's like a living room, and then that arched door, it's actually a door that's right behind us and between us, that goes into another, almost like a salon, that she could turn into another bedroom, but she has it like a TV room in there, and that's where we watch TV. And then on either end of the condo, she has a bedroom and full bathroom. So it's a wonderful opportunity when you're visiting, because you have your own quarters on the other end of the condo. And then, as we mentioned, over what's my shoulder to you watching, you'll see that's my dad's urn that's sitting on the mantle, and it's that really tasteful marble covered urn. And one thing that's really interesting that you mentioned is it's self-contained.
Right.
So you can bury that urn without having to use a vault.
correct. That's what the funeral home told me.
And then my mom already picked out her mashing urn, and then the plan would be, and you can go on, I shared the video on Facebook, there's a cemetery where a lot of my dad's family are buried, and that's where they've had a plot for years. So we went out on Tuesday, the 5-year anniversary of my dad's passing, to visit this cemetery. How did it feel, visiting the place where you and Dad would eventually be laid to rest?
It's a beautiful cemetery,
It really
and we together had visited there many times, to take flowers up to his mom and dad's and his brother's graves that are there. And it kind of said to me, Joanne, you're not ready. You're not ready
Exactly.
to go under the ground. I think you have some more life in you, but I will be returning when it's time.
Yeah, and it's funny because we did talk to the funeral home, and they said, you can pay, because there's a price on everything, you can pay to have the ashes transported to the cemetery. And then my mom determined, or we confirmed, it's not like a body. Once you have somebody's ashes, you don't have to worry and get in trouble for transporting a body illegally. So you can actually drive the ashes yourself. And we talked about, my sister and I, assuming we outlive my mom, then we could take my mom and dad's ashes, and then the plan would be to bury them together. And also in this cemetery, we should mention that my grandma and grandpa, my dad's parents, Helen and Oscar, they are buried. And then my dad, when he was in 8th grade,
Right.
he lost a younger brother when my grandpa and his younger brother, Denny, who would have been my uncle, they were tragically involved in a car train accident where my grandpa did not see a train, and it hit the passenger side of his vehicle, killing Denny, his son and my dad's brother. And it never, changed. I mean, it
Right.
affects a family for the
It
rest of your
affected-
life.
Jim said it, a day never went by in his life that he didn't think of Dennis.
And my grandpa wasn't hurt in the crash,
No.
but the
No.
fact that he didn't see the train must have rendered a
Horrible
horrible guilt
tragedy.
that he lived with. And my grandma never blamed him for,
No,
the crash. And so Denny, and it was, what was his middle name?
Dennis Eugene.
Dennis Eugene
Mhm.
Thomas. He's buried in the same cemetery adjacent to Oscar and Helen, his parents. So we got to see that headstone again. And then in the cemetery in my mom's hometown, she grew up how many miles? 3 miles from Gibson City, Illinois,
Oh,
on a
it's-
farm.
It's about 5 to 10 miles from Gibson City, yeah.
So we went out to that land where the homestead and the farm, barn, and other buildings no longer stand, because they were leveled after a fire in the house many, many years after my mom had left. And then they leveled that whole land so that they could cover it with crops.
Right, and if any of you, have owned farmland, the older homes and buildings, it's very common to demolish them and bury them, because you get more value
Sure.
out of the farmland than you do renting these older homes. And you can't even tell that there were farms there.
No, it's crazy.
So I know it was hard for the grandkids to visualize there was a farm here.
Yeah, and I grew up going to that farm until my grandpa passed away, and he was in his 80s. So I was already living and working in Waterloo before my grandpa passed away. So when we were out at this cemetery in Gibson City, Illinois, where my mom's side is buried and a lot of her relatives, it was fascinating because one of her relatives, my great grandma's uncle, named Harrison Barrow,
Hamilton.
Hamilton,
They
thank
called
you.
him Ham.
Hamilton Barrow. He was actually there. My mom's whole family has roots in Virginia, because we date back to the colonials with our ancestry. So he and his family had relocated from Virginia to Illinois. Well, because of his heritage being in Virginia, he fought for the Confederate Army in the Civil War. So he fought for the South, survived the Civil War, and then was laid to rest in Illinois in that cemetery. So that's just so fascinating. Then one of your cousins said that in another town, Leroy, Illinois, you have relatives who fought for the Union Army, the North. So
Right,
you have
right.
relatives in your family that
That's
fought on
that's
both sides.
where my father's family is buried. And my maiden name was Sarver, so there are quite a few Sarvers and Tompkins buried in the Leroy Cemetery, right?
And then the name that Hamilton had, that her great grandmother had, or my great grandma had, is Barrow.
Barrow, a lot of barrows.
So they all came from Virginia and settled in the rich Midwest
Right.
farmland.
It was in right after the Civil War, 1867. Well, the war ended in 1865, And I think by 1867, they had a relative living in Bloomington, Illinois. And they lost everything in the war. They at one time,
Because they were on
They
the
could-
southern side.
they could look out the window of their home in Virginia and they could see battles going
Yeah,
on.
that is crazy.
And the soldiers, they took everything. You know, they needed food, they needed animals, and they took them. And this cousin in Bloomington said, come to Illinois. The farmland is wonderful farmland. It's a great time that you can purchase it. So this whole large Barrow family came, and there were probably 8 kids in the family, one of them being my great-grandfather. And he was the baby. And all of these brothers bought up farmland on a 5-mile stretch between Gibson City and Elliott, Illinois. And that whole strip for 5 miles was owned by Barrow brothers. And then later, when telephones came in, they called it the Barrow Line, because then you had parties on the same telephone line, and all the cousins could listen in what the other cousins were
That's
saying
so funny.
on the telephone line.
Yes, it's crazy how you could be so nosy with your neighbors.
Right,
You
right.
could listen in on their conversation. And my grandma, out
Oh.
in the farm near Fooseland, Illinois, she was famous for eavesdropping on everybody. My
No.
grandma Thomas.
Nosy number 1.
And then what was your phone number?
13F32. And the phone had a ringer on it. It was a big black box, had a ringer, and when you rang it, then the operator in Elliott, Illinois, may I help you? And you told them who you wanted to call, and then they would connect you to whoever you wanted to call. One phone in the house, right in the middle of the house, so whenever you were on the phone, everybody heard what you were saying. You had no privacy.
Yeah, no texting and being secretive back then. So when you grew up on the farm, how did you enjoy that life?
Oh, I loved being on the farm then because I was a real tomboy. I had a pony that I rode all the time, Sweetheart, and dogs, cats in the barn. A lot of them were wild. They weren't tamed. But of course, my goal was to tame them so I could play with them. I raised chickens. I raised sheep. It was a wonderful life. I would never give up. When you got to be a teen in that situation, it can be pretty lonely out on the farm when all of your friends live in town. So I'd get my bicycle out, and that 3-mile stretch, I would ride my bicycle into town and actually lived at the local Gibson City swimming pool in the summers with my friends. So great memories from the farm. Then you get in high school, and back then we got really severe winters. A lot of snow, drifting. Many times in the winter we would be snowed in. My dad worked in town, and when the forecast was, we're getting a bad one, he would get a lot of groceries, he'd get home, and we would literally get snowed in maybe 2-3 days before the snowplow could come through to open up the roads. I hated that because my friends in town would get to go to the basketball games and to the dances, and there I was snowed in. And I said, if I ever get off this farm, I'm never living here again, and I didn't.
And you lived they lived in the big metropolis of Peoria, Illinois. That's where both my parents moved to when they were eventually married after attending Illinois State, and then that's where my sister and I were raised, and where you have called home since. What year did you move here?
Came here in 1966.
Yeah.
Did not know one person. and fortunately found a lady who was renting a room, $30 a month. That was just a few blocks down the street.
Mrs. Casper.
Mrs. Casper, Beulah Casper, from the school that I got assigned to teach second grade. It was, that was very brave of a little hometown rural girl that had never really been too far from home
And you
before.
graduated college in 3 years.
3 years. Well, there was nothing to do in Gibson City but work at the local Dog and Suds or walk beans. For those of you who grew up on farms, you know what it means to walk beans and clean the volunteer weeds out of the beans. You don't have to do that today. Fertilizers and chemicals take care of that.
Now we're all just poisoning ourselves.
And that's what we're all dying from, cancer. But I'm convinced
It's so bad.
all these chemicals they're putting on our crops.
Yeah,
I think
it's
that's
scary.
That's what's taken us.
It's so sad when you think about how everything was such a simpler time back then,
Right.
like you described. Now, you also have a family marked by tragedy prior to you being born. Your
Right.
family also lost a child.
Right. The year before I was born, I had a brother, and he was 2 years old. Mom was in the house working. Dad was out in the field. It was in May, in the spring. He was out in the field, and mom couldn't find him. And she saw where he'd gotten through out of the gate, and it had been a rainy season that year, and they saw tracks, and he had followed the dog, they think, down to a creek. And the creek water was very high that spring from all the rains they had had, and they saw his little footprints go down the bank of the creek, and he was found a mile down, floating on his face. Affected my parents the rest of their life.
Oh, I bet.
And
Absolutely.
it was tragic, and I so wish that I had had a brother. And of course, then I came after that happened.
And part of your name being Joe, J-O, and then middle name Ann, you were named almost a boy name.
My father said they wanted a boy to replace his nickname was Butchie. His real name was Robert Douglas, and they called him Butchie, and they wanted another boy. And of course, I wasn't the other boy. And my dad said right after I was born, well, we didn't get our boy, but we're going to name her Joe. And we better add Ann for the middle name because it is a girl, and I'm going to treat her like a boy. And I did become his tomboy.
Yeah, that's true. You loved
In
the
seventh
outdoors.
grade, I went hunting with my father, and in seventh grade, the only thing I wanted was a 410 shotgun. So I didn't have to carry a stick when I went hunting with him. And I got the 410 shotgun. I was able to kill one pheasant, and after I did, it was such a beautiful bird, I said, I can never kill another animal.
I
Never.
know you also did a clay pigeon shooting competition.
My dad said, Joe, you're a pretty good shot. He said, they're having a turkey shootout. And he said, I'm going to sign you up for it. So I said, well, that sounds fun. So we went into Gibson City to the Sportsman's Club, and there was one other lady that was in it. So it was just the two of us. I beat her. And I used my dad's 10-gauge shotgun. And believe you me, that's a powerful shotgun. And I outshot her by one clay pigeon. And I got this whole box of groceries, a turkey, and all the things to go along to make the Thanksgiving meal. And I tell you, I never won anything in my life that I was more proud of than that prize. And when Dad and I got home, my mom she just couldn't believe it, that I won all that food for the Thanksgiving dinner.
That's so great. That's such a great story. So in the 60s, you moved to Peoria, then you and Dad become initially teachers, then Dad was a superintendent very young at 28 in
Right.
a small district called Pritchard Clark or Little America.
Youngest superintendent in the state of Illinois at that time.
And then my mom, when I was in middle school and high school, it was actually the end of my middle school time, she finished her doctorate at Illinois State. And then by getting that doctorate, that helped cement your opportunity to be an elementary school principal.
Well, I was pursuing it at the time that I got the principalship.
Okay.
And I think that helped me get it. The superintendent at that time really respected women, and he was starting to hire more women in principalships. Dr. Strand was his name, and he came from the East Coast. And it was very difficult for years for women to get principalships. I was the fifth
I
female.
think fourth, because that was it.
Fourth
I was
or fifth.
looking in your book last night.
Okay,
Your
to get a
retirement book.
principalship in Peoria, and that was really unheard of. So when I got the principalship, I had all the coursework done for the doctorate, which was 80 hours over a bachelor's, a lot of coursework. But I had to write the dissertation. And to go into the principalship and come home and write a dissertation,
That was a lot.
Let me
and
tell you.
still doing all the domestic things because you always cooked
right.
and did so
Right.
much at home. So that was a lot. That was a big load.
It took, at age 40, I had the coursework done when I got the principalship. I did not complete that dissertation 10 years. And I was turning 50. And I said, if I don't finish it this summer, I have to stop. I have to get it off my back. And I made up my mind that summer, I'm going to put my table, I'm going to put my computer right by the back door. Every morning I'm reporting to that computer until I have to have a break. And I could see our little swimming pool out the back door. And I thought, that's where I'm going to be in the afternoon. And that got me through it.
That
And
was
I
good.
finished it that summer.
Yeah, so you get your doctorate at Illinois State, and you then, by going to Illinois State, were you were the third generation, and then when Sarah, my sister, graduated from Illinois State, she was fourth generation.
Right.
Because you have a great-grandma.
Both of my grandmothers graduated from
My
ISU,
great-grandma.
and your great-grandmas, Grandma Sarver and Grandma Jones, in the early 1900s. And
That's
then
crazy.
you only had to go 1 year to be a teacher. And they went out into one-room schoolhouses to teach. Then Jim's mother went in the 30s, 34 to 36, and at that time, she only needed 2 years to get a teaching certificate.
And you could not be married if you
Correct.
were going to be a teacher.
Right. So then once she became married, she had to give up her teaching. But then that changed, and when her kids got into school, then she went back to teach. And then Jim and I went in the 60s, and then your sister Sarah went in the 90s to ISU. And Sarah's 2 kids, my grandchildren, probably will go to ISU, and they will be the 5th generation in our family to go to Illinois State University.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then when you were at Illinois State, the girls had different rules than the
Oh.
guys.
We had to be in our room in a locked dorm by 10 o'clock. On the weekends, Friday night and Saturday night, we could stay out until midnight, and that was it.
What about the guys?
The guys had no rules.
It's
So they were
crazy.
out running all over the town all night doing things that crazy college guys do. Oh yeah, and we were locked in the dorm. Talk about
That
discrimination.
is so crazy.
I cannot believe that we weren't smart enough to rise up. Boy, if they did that today, they'd be in trouble.
That's so true. That's so crazy. So when my parents grew up, or we grew up in Peoria, and they had careers as administrators, then when they retired, you were quite young when you were able to retire.
I could retire with full benefits at age 57. I had 37 years in my career, and at that time, you could get 75% of your salary as your
The rest
retirement.
of your life.
The rest of your life. And so what they did then, they took your last 4 years of employment and they averaged what your salary was at that time, and then you got 75% of that for life. And then upon the death of Jim, I got 50% of his salary for life. So it is an absolute, unbelievable retirement that I get. I'm so blessed,
Yes.
but we worked very hard to get there, and we did it on our own.
And you only took off, the longest you took off was with Sarah when you took a year, and then you guys bought back into the retirement system.
Yes, I bought back, I was out a year with you and out a year with Sarah when on maternity. And with you, I could be out 3 years. And unpaid, you weren't paid during your maternity leave. And so just a year I was out, and that's tough going back. But I want to tell those mothers, today most mothers go back, it doesn't damage your children.
That's right. I think my sister and I turned out pretty well.
They are resilient, and it's harder on you, the mother, than it is on the child.
And you were always so domestic, even though you're working full time. Like she would, hand sew our Halloween costumes when we would have birthday parties. One year you made monogrammed checkered beanbags for every kid.
So we could play beanbag games. Had to be Martha Stewart.
Yes.
Had to have the career, and it's very demanding.
And then Illinois is a very strong union state. So when your administrators were tied in to the teachers' union, they collectively were able to bargain that you still get a raise every year on your pension, which is crazy.
What they got, we got. So we were, go teachers, because we were tied into that salary schedule also. And the old timers always said, don't get off of that salary schedule, because they'll freeze yours to give the teachers raises. So there'll never be another retirement like we got at the time.
Well,
we
because
went
it's
out.
not sustainable.
Can't afford it. Can't afford it. No.
Because you're 81 and you started drawing
When I was 57.
Yeah, that's quite a stretch.
Believe me, I have surpassed what I paid into that retirement plan.
That's so true. So when they found a house in 1969 that they bought in West Peoria, Ivan was born in 73 and then my sister in 78. So then you stayed in that house until Charlotte was 1.
Right.
So that would have been 2007.
It was 1972 that we bought our first home.
Oh, okay. I was
May
thinking,
1st.
69 is when you got married and then you bought the house in 72.
Exactly a year to when you were born. We found this cutest house in West Peoria, and Jim said, he put his foot down, we will not pay over $30,000 for a house. Well, back then, you could get a pretty good house for $30,000. So we found this house, and we paid $27,500 for it. And we lived in it for 35 years.
It was a great house.
All of our friends were building their new big fancy homes and moving north and getting out of West Peoria or closer to how the city, was changing. It was changing in many ways, and it was kind of creeping north. And we stayed, and we were very committed. Jim did not want to leave. He did not like change. And so I said, well, you can stay, but I'm going.
And that's when they upsized and bought a very large home that ended up being a wonderfully spacious home for the 4 grandchildren, and
Right.
did a lot of renovations and put in an incredible backyard pool and had a large cabana. And when I say cabana, it was almost like a second. I mean, it was like guest quarters. Yeah, it was like
right.
guest quarters because it was this like all enclosed, beautiful, hand built, spacious cabana that had in there like a sectional sofa, a refrigerator, it had like a small refrigerator and a television, and so you could go in there and be kind of surrounded by the adjacent woods that were, because your home was on a cul-de-sac set in the back, abutting the woods. So when you were living in that home, and Gina, I was talking to Gina yesterday, and she said when you walked out into that backyard, it looked like you were in a Vegas pool scape because they had so much concrete and umbrellas, and it was just
Patios
really, the only
and
time it sucked is when there was a storm coming and you had to take down like 16 umbrellas.
Oh, yeah, I'd say, we're on umbrella duty. and I, back then, I thought, boy, I'd love to have a remote that I could do all the umbrellas. Because
you were
we'd
like
go
a-
different
yeah.
directions and run around cranking all the
It
umbrellas
was like
down.
you were a cabana boy
Right.
at a resort.
And one year, we got 80-mile-per-hour winds. It was in June, the crazy June we've been having now. And I'm not kidding, it was like a tornado went right through our backyard. We had $20,000 worth of damage to the backyard.
Oh my gosh, that was crazy.
I thought Jim was going to have a stroke on that. It was terrible. So,
Yeah, so that backyard and the house was a lot to maintain. So when my father was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, started to deteriorate immediately, then my mom was going through what a lot of older couples go through, that feeling of, oh my gosh, this is not going to end well. Jim is not going to survive, and then you're going to be a widow, and then you knew that was too much house for you to maintain. Plus, it had 4 levels because
Right.
they finished a bonus room. Then you had your main floor, and then there was a sunken area that had stairs, and then there was the full finished basement. So
just
at
a lot
that,
of stairs.
So at the point you decided to move, Dad was sick, but he was still with us.
Right. I knew I had to get him out of that house. I feared that he was going, because he was getting up in the nights and wandering, and I feared he was going to fall down those stairs. And I had put gates up on a couple stairways. I had already put chairlifts in to go up to the bedrooms upstairs and down to the basement because my joints were getting bad. So I put those in a few years before that. But it just, and invariably if he got in the backyard, he would head to the stairs that didn't have a handrail instead of going to the stairs that had the handrail, I just knew he was going to fall and it wasn't going to be good. So something said, you need to start looking for condos in Peoria. And I went online and I went to realtor.com and I typed in condo Peoria, Illinois. And this condo pops up for sale. I saw it and the pictures, and Tara was in town that weekend, and of course they were out shopping. They love to go shopping. And I said, you guys aren't going to believe this condo. So I showed it to them, and they said, you've got to get in it. You've got to get in it. So I called my realtor. Ryan Blackerby, by the way, is a wonderful realtor. I'm going to put a plug in for Ryan. And he got us in the next day, and Jim came with us. And we walked in here, and I looked at Tara, and I said, I want this condo.
You
And
just knew
yes.
you were not going to find
No.
a more beautifully appointed condo, because the woman who lived here had just redone and redecorated the
She
whole condo.
had gutted the whole thing and did everything top notch.
So just like behind my mom's head, you can see she put really unique wallpaper in the entryway with that blue and white, the navy. Then my mom was able to bring in some of her artwork that just so perfectly went with like this navy accent wall that's behind our screen right now, behind our camera. And then you had a chandelier and this large table added.
Right.
And then you also had some of her furniture you
I
were able to purchase.
Right, she was relocating to Florida, and it helped her and it helped me. She was willing to sell a lot of her furniture because she didn't want to have to take it to Florida. And my furniture just wouldn't work in here. It was too big. And so, boy, did that really
Oh,
help.
it's been such a great
And
place.
I had to replace all the rugs. So, and she was wonderful. She said, you can come in, you can measure, you can do whatever. And she even said, now I'm going to take this chandelier above the dining room table, and if you can get a replacement, I will have my electrician put it up for you. I mean, how many people that you buy from do that? So I was over here measuring her rugs and everything. It was just wonderful.
It was meant
how-
to be.
Right.
Yeah, and so the other, what were you going to say?
I closed on the condo 1 month. It was the 1st of June, 1 month before Jim passed. And the closing date, I wanted to close earlier. And she said, no, I need to close June 30th. Lo and behold, I mean, I really believe God had a plan for us. And how everything fell in place. June 30th is the day he passed away. And that's the date I wanted to take possession of the condo. So it just all worked out, and he passed June 30th, and we closed August 1st. And that gave me a month to get ready to come, which was not easy.
No, and it was so much change so quickly.
Oh.
The one crazy plus to this condo building, so there are two buildings, a north building and a south building, and each building has 4 levels, and then how many? 3 levels, I'm sorry, how many condos
There's
are
30,
in each?
there's 10 on a floor, so there's 30 units in each building. So in our condo association, we have 60 units.
So she's on the top floor, which is why she has the cathedral ceilings.
Right.
And then it's nice because there are no above you neighbors that you hear walking. We're just walking heavily on the people below.
And I'm glad Don wears hearing aids.
Yeah, Don, who's right below. We joke if we make a lot of noise, we're like, poor Don below us, he can hear us. So what's so wonderful that makes this condo, I think, it just sets it apart from most senior living. You have an elevator that takes you to your underground, heated, spacious parking deck that's underneath the condo. And she gets 2 spaces, and she has 2 vehicles, an SUV and then a traditional car. So just that alone has been worth
Right.
it because of the
Right.
snow.
It is in the top 5 pluses of living here. That's one of them.
Because you never have to have your car
I don't have
parked
to go outside. I just
Yeah.
go down the elevator into
And
the
then they
driveway.
have remote control garage doors that open, so you never have to get out and open a gate or do anything. I mean, so for
Right.
seniors, it's such a blessing. So tell them in 2021, tell them the square footage of your condo and how much it cost in 2021.
Okay, this condo is 1,930 square feet.
2-bedroom, 2 full baths.
Actually, it
and
can be,
could be a third bedroom.
Could be a third bedroom, 2 full baths. It's very spacious, and at that time, I paid more for this condo than any of the 30 condos had sold for. I paid $266,000 at that time.
But it's still so reasonable compared to
Right.
what we hear other condos
Right.
are selling for.
Now, the last, one of these condos open up, they go so fast. And a lot of time it's word by mouth, and people don't even go through a realtor. They do it for sale by owner, because there's so many people our age and even younger that would love to live here, that are
Yes.
ready to give up their big house and all the care and everything. And the last condo that sold here, that was my size, sold over $300,000.
Yeah,
So-
it's definitely appreciated.
It has been a great investment, and I won't see that, but the girls will.
Maybe I'll live in this condo if I
Well-
live long enough.
You know?
I can. Bird is watching my sister. We call her Bird, so I can buy out Bird's half of the condo, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. And
Well, we have the dogs, so they would have a hard time.
my plan is, my neighbor lady and I, Shirley, my neighbor
Yeah, if
lady.
you've been to
Shirley,
any of our shows, you know I
She's-
talk about Shirley.
she's 10 years older, and she is just a dear, dear friend. She's right next door. And we both have put down a deposit to go to a senior living facility. And she always jokes and she says, well, we're already in independent living, minus the dining room.
Yeah.
We have to take care of our own food. But it's like independent living.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. And I tell the girls, when I get to the point that I can no longer care for myself, they know where I want to go. And Tara toured it with me, because that was a possibility to take Jim to. And I told Tara, I said, Tara, I'm not ready to go there.
No.
I can't do it. I would die a slow death.
Especially because you're claustrophobic, and when we went in one
So
of the
small.
apartments, it just seemed very suffocating, literally
Right.
and figuratively to her. And then my dad, when he was still with it, he would joke and say, I'm not going to be one of these people that live somewhere where the doors are decorated with holiday decorations. And so then of course when we toured a couple of these senior living facilities, everyone had their doors, decorated.
And we do that here.
Yeah, and they do that. They have a shelf outside of each of their condos, so it's really neat because you can then add your own touch of decor
Right.
out when you walk in. So the other thing that's really wonderful is my sister lives like 10 minutes away, and then she has 2 children. So my nephew Liam, he'll be a junior in high school, and then Ava will be in 8th grade. And every year during her middle school years, you picked Ava up from school.
I pick her up after school, yeah.
She doesn't like to ride the bus and would get car sick on the bus, and then it ended up being a perfect way for my mom to have an opportunity then to see her every day and to
Right.
spend time with her. So you've been very close with Ava.
Oh, right, and I always felt like it gave me a purpose, something that I could do, and, and to keep in touch with Ava, it's been great.
So if you're just joining us, I'm live today from Peoria, Illinois, my mom's beautiful, spacious condo in Peoria, and she's my guest co-host because this week we released our new book that she wrote and I helped get from mouth to page, and it's titled Sleepless in Peoria, Wisdom from a Caregiver Turned Widow. You can Google Sleepless in Peoria on Amazon to buy the book, and it's, I think, reasonable. It's like $9.99 for 63 pages. So thanks to all of you, so many of you who have, said, hey, I know myself or a loved one could benefit from these words of wisdom. And if you saw what I shared earlier in the week, we were so honored that it went to number 5 in the new releases category among grief books. And so that was cool because I looked at some of the other authors in that category, and it was some very big name people that you were among in your category. So that was cool.
Well, that is nice.
Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise. So now that makes 5 books that Amanda and I have released under this Faith in 4-Letter Words brand. So, I mean, we've just covered all ages because we've got the original book, Faith in 4-Letter Words, then The Advice That Went Viral, which was a collection of our online essays, essentially, that really got a lot of social media traction and attention. And then there's 2 children's books that Amanda modeled after her grandmother, Grace, and the girl in the illustrations is meant to look like her youngest daughter, Aria. And the books are Grace Is Not Bossy and The Girl with Big Ideas. And we've just had such wonderful response from people who said, I know a Grace. I have a daughter or granddaughter who is a Spitfire, and we don't want to crush their personality, right? We don't want to make them feel that it's wrong for girls to have an opinion or to use their voice. And sometimes, of course, we're called bossy
Yes.
compared to the boys. And then this book, the 5th book in the series now, or at least under the Faith in 4-Letter Words brand, it's really geared toward my age and older. So people like us who are going through our parents aging, and in my mom's case, all the crazy transitions that you were thrust into, because my parents in their retirement years were traveling and very independent. In that large home, you were doing gardening, Dad could do yard work, and they would like both. You know, my dad would work out, my mom was in book club, so you both did a lot of things independently.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you're like, he's dependent on you.
Right. Like I described it, even though, you know, he spent a lot of time down in what we called his man cave in the basement watching TV. And I had my own TV that I watched. You know. Even though we might be in separate parts of the house a lot of the times, someone was there. And that makes a huge difference when they're not there.
Mm-hmm.
And
Just that lonely feeling.
that lonely feeling. And I'm telling you, it's tough when you come home and you can't walk in and there's no one there.
Mm-hmm.
It is a horrible feeling. And with 5 years, I feel like the way I describe it, it never goes away. It never goes away. It will never heal, but it gets easier to manage. And the floodgates don't open as often as they did at the beginning, but they can still open. And you have no idea when it's going to happen. It can be a song.
Definitely.
It can be an ad on TV with a couple. You have no idea how many ads on television involve couples. You can be at the mall or the grocery store and you see other couples, their shop. It's just
It's constant reminders.
it's constant reminders
Of
of
what
what
you-
was and what is not not anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, so for those of you watching that have ever come to our shows, you know that a big part of the show is talking about my mom and dad's journey. And so that's what led to the book. It was just on my heart that we need to capture some of this experience on paper, knowing that there will be so many of you that can relate to so much of what my mom went through. And she's real raw in the book and talks about how challenging all the things were, from my dad wandering in the night to then knowing the moment that she realized I can't physically do this anymore, when he went into the home. And that was such a short time that he was actually in a memory care facility. So after going through all that, then of course my sister and I were adamant that if my mom wanted to move in with one of us, we knew that that was going to be hard for her to live alone. But then you also want your independence
Right.
too.
I knew, no, I cannot, I didn't want to go into your home,
Right.
and I knew it was going to be tough, but I knew I had to do it. And even Sarah's husband, Will, said, Joanne, you cannot live alone. You need to stay here in the house with us. I said, I can't do it. But so this is kind of a funny little story. The last day, it was very bittersweet when I pulled away from the house.
Yes.
And I said, okay, guys, I have to do it. I have to go, and I'll be okay. And I was driving away, of course, the tears running, and I remembered I forgot my purse. So about 2 blocks from the house, I turn around, I go back, and I go in the door. I said, guys, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I can't do it. The looks on their face were, oh my.
Yeah, 'cause my sister's family moved
And I
into
said,
her house.
just kidding, I forgot my purse.
That was so. That was a classic. I wanted to mention thank you, by the way, for these comments. And Chris Wicker said, "You and your mom are beautiful. Thank you for sharing your story, and I will look up the book." Thank you, Chris, and all the other comments. We really appreciate you joining us live. So the reason I'll mention that my hair is very like out of control, in addition to the humidity out there. So my son, if you're still in the throes of varsity baseball in Iowa, you know right now is a crazy time. So we had, what did we have? Like we were supposed to have 6 games this week. So Monday I was here with my mom and missed our doubleheader because my daughter flew in from Arizona, and then on Tuesday is when we all went with my mom and everybody but my son out to the cemeteries and that we've talked about in this show. So that was such a great experience for all of us to be together and to be able to do that. Well, then come Wednesday, we were in Dubuque for a doubleheader. Well, last night we were in Cedar Rapids at Xavier, and my husband and I had to drive separately because I was going to come on to Peoria. Well, if you were in Eastern Iowa last night and yesterday afternoon, you know that we had another torrential downpour. It's like the 4th time in probably a month and a half I've driven in horrible conditions on the road. So much so that everyone was turning on their flashers. Some people were pulled off on the shoulders because it was just a downpour. So we get to the field. They have a turf field at Xavier, and thankfully they didn't have to do a lot with field conditions. But we literally were 2 innings in when we heard the clap of thunder and the umps pull everybody off the field. So for the next hour or more, we sat in this rain lightning delay, and then we ended up going back out on the field, and right when they were going to throw the first pitch, there was the clap of thunder, so they had to suspend the games, and then that ended up actually working out well that I got on the road to come here much sooner than I anticipated. But if you were heading out today, for 4th of July traffic, crazy driving weekend, I mean, in addition to the traffic, which wasn't too terribly bad that late, but there were so many bugs that it was like there were lightning bugs even that were coming at me on my windshield. So I was able to make it despite having to drive, through very bug-splattered windshield view, which was not great driving from Xavier to here. So it was about 2 hours and 20 minutes or so. It's about 2.5 hours to get here. And then this weekend, tomorrow on the 4th, every year for the last actually 10 or more years probably, we've all gone downtown the Illinois River. There's this huge concrete plaza, beautiful area where they cordon it off, and then the Boys and Girls Club do an annual fundraiser. So my mom buys a section, and then we have a reserved place for our seating during the fireworks that are right there off the bridge over the Illinois River, one of the biggest fireworks shows in Illinois. And then we have a reserved parking spot as well. So it's so nice that we get to have this. We don't have to fight the crowds or the traffic. And then part of this fundraiser, you get unlimited hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken sandwiches, ice cream sandwiches and drinks. And
It's amazing.
yeah, it's such, I mean, it's
Provided by Raber Foods.
yeah, so
They-
it is
they do a
expensive in
great
that
job.
but it's a charitable event.
Right, it's a great event.
So thank you for getting us
You're
tickets this year.
welcome.
So my son and his best friend Landon are going to come after baseball, I think, either today or tomorrow. They're going to drive, and then her granddaughter, my daughter Charlotte, she's always on the go. So she was with me here. We went back to Iowa, and then she was with all her friends and getting established with her summer internship. And then today, as we speak, she's on the road to Kansas City because her boyfriend Isaac and his family invited Charlotte to spend the 4th with them. And so she was really excited because when I was in that crash, then she ended up now has a different vehicle that she's able to drive when she's home, and that's the car she was able to take with her to that she'll take to Arizona. So a lot of moving parts for those of you like us who have families with different ages and stages of kids. And I should mention, when you see my mom and I, and we look, well, the lighting isn't great, but when we look like, you know, we just got up not that long
We
ago.
did.
She's been up
I've been up since 2.
really early.
The title of the book that begins Sleepless in Peoria, let me tell you,
hmm
there's a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah, it was an appropriate title. So my mom never wears makeup much because you have eyelash extensions and tattooed eyebrows.
Yes, my grandkids say we have a gangsta grandma.
Because your eyebrows
She
are
has tattooed eyebrows.
yeah, they said you have tattoos on your face, right?
Yeah,
Which is
I have facial tattoos.
yeah. So it's so crazy. Her eyebrows, they've lasted a long time.
They
and
have.
They look good. So I mean,
They
when
have.
you wake up, it looks like and you even did lip liner.
Now, that's been gone for years. Now, those eyebrows, there's a little dye on those too.
Okay.
There's still some hairs there.
Okay.
But without the dye, they'd probably be about the same color as this. I'd look like Mrs. Claus.
So what's crazy is if you get lash extensions, then you know this. As we age, our lashes really thin out.
Mhm.
So you have to go every 2 weeks to
I
get
do.
your fill.
I do.
I've been going every 4 weeks for quite some time, and now I'm actually just starting to be on the cusp of I really need to go every 3 weeks because
Okay.
they're thinning, and it's partly too the time of year. So with the humidity, I'm sure they don't last as long because you definitely
Right,
tend
it
to
affects it.
lose
Right.
some of your extensions. So how long have you been doing lash extensions?
Ooh.
Quite a
Probably,
while.
I don't know, over 5 years.
Yeah.
And you get used to, I mean.
How you look with them.
Yes.
Mhm.
And it's so much easier to get ready if you're dressing up to go out. You don't have to do anything with the eyes because with the lights. Now, I do need to get the plastic surgery on the bags. I always look like I'm going on a trip because my bags are packed. And that goes with aging. Sorry, girls, get ready for the bags to appear.
Well, what's great is you've never colored your hair, so
No.
your hair didn't turn.
This hair is.
It's like a brighter silver.
Years ago, my hairdressers, Fred, I said, Fred, you know, I look in the mirror, because I grayed very, very early. I started graying in college. And I said, there's days I look in the mirror and this gray hair is really aging me. He said, do not put dye on that hair. It will turn red. I said, I do not want red hair. I've never dyed it.
Yeah, and it was crazy how then as you got older, you looked so much younger because you had already had gray hair, and then everybody else, their face started to age,
Right.
but their hair.
I look at friends who have dyed their hair all these years, and I think, I wonder what they'd look like with that gray
well,
hair underneath
because
that.
it wouldn't be bright silver.
I was very lucky the way it came
Yeah,
in.
right. Because a lot of times if
Yeah.
they dye it and then they try to grow out their natural, it almost has that like yellowish hue to it,
Right,
you know, from
right.
the dye. So
Yeah.
like mine would look if I eventually let mine go gray. So I've taken after her husband, my father, who he didn't go gray
He did not
really
gray,
at all
no.
until
His problem was thinning.
it was thinning. Yeah,
He was
so
losing it.
so my darker natural, because I only have to
It
do
would be
highlights,
dark,
it
yeah.
would still be really dark. And so one thing that Amanda and I talk about, if you get highlights and you get really blonde highlights, that really helps to blend in if you do have any gray, because the blonde is so bright that it, you know, will cover it. So those are tips from Tara and Joanne. How we like approach, you know, the middle and later years. So thank you again for everybody watching, and we just wanted to do a quick Bible verse to close out today. This is a good one that came up today on my YouVersion app, from Hebrews chapter 12, verse 14. Work at living in peace with everyone, and work at living a holy life, for those who are not holy will not see the Lord. So this is a good reminder that sometimes you're not going to say it to their face, but they just need Jesus, right? When you're just annoyed and irritated with so many people at any moment that can set you off, just turn it over to God, and as Amanda and I say, bless and release. So we hope you have a wonderful
And I want to
holiday
say one
weekend.
last thought.
Yeah.
God bless all the caregivers out there, and the widows and the widowers. I am a testament. We can survive.
That's such a great note to
Have
end
a
on.
wonderful 4th of July.
Yeah, we're so happy if you're celebrating with friends and family that it's maybe, at least here, we're supposed to get rain today, but then tomorrow it should clear off.
Possible showers
Oh, shoot.
tomorrow. Maybe
Okay.
that'll cool us off. though.
Yeah, so, and they definitely need the rain here in Illinois. So when you head out, enjoy your time, and happy 250th birthday to the United States. What an incredible celebration, marking how fortunate we are to live in this democracy. So have a great weekend. And Amanda and I are planning to be reunited back together for our next group chat on Monday morning. So we will see you then.
Good show.